Hello, this is going to be advanced PowerShell. So if it's too advanced, you might want to go back to the PowerShell tutorial. But we're going to authenticate with the Graph API and build a app ID, and then we're going to add remove devices based on machine tags. Let's go. All right, guys, so we're going to do two things. We're going to show you how to authenticate with the Graph API via PowerShell, and also we're going to follow a workflow for adding a device to a device group. And this would be via PowerShell. And we're going to do this via machine tag. So if you tag a machine a certain way, it'll dynamically add itself to a certain device group. There will be scenarios where you want to do this, so I'll kind of explain why. But first, we need to authenticate with the graph. If you already have your information like your tenant domain, you have your tenant ID, right, and all these parameters, or you know how to authenticate with the graph your own way, then you can skip it and go straight to adding a device, okay? The people that don't, we're going to continue on and show you. So on the documentation, it says that you need to create that app registration ID, and then once you create that app registration, you add that app. So let's do that. We're going to go to Azure Active Directory. We're going to go then to app registration. We're going to do the new registration, and we'll type TeachJing demo, and I will put this just as a filler. We may or may not need to use it, but this redirect URL is used for certain OAuth authentication methods. Now, another thing to pay attention to is this: who has access to the application. I'm going to do single tenant, but if there's ever a point that you need to, add other organizations to have access or anything like that, you may want to just create a separate app ID and then give that organization access. You don't want to use the same app ID for your stuff and their stuff. You want to give them their own and scope them to what they have access to. Okay? All right, let's register. We're going to get two things already from this screen. We're going to get an application ID and the tenant ID. So I'm going to put the client ID. And I'm going to delete this, so, don't even try using it because it's going to be deleted once I'm done with this demo. All right. Now that I did that, I need a client secret, right? That's the last field. So let me try to get another one. That'll be on certificate and secrets. You go to new client secret and you generate a new one. Now, the expiration date is just really how long before it expires. We have to generate another one. We're going to copy this. We're going to go back and put it here as well. Okay? Again, I'm doing this from Jupyter Notebooks, but you can do this in your PowerShell script. If you do want access to this workbook, it's on my GitHub repo in the description, and you can run it that way. Okay? If you want to import the required modules, if you want to use my module, I have a graph authentication module. That way, it's not going to clutter up the notebook here. I also have PP Core, which is just my way of storing my credentials locally, basically with a salted master password, and it kind of hashes and salts the credentials so that you can't really see it. I'll kind of show you what it looks like. So I'm going to run this, right? I'll Shift-Enter to run it. I'm going to verify I have the credentials, all right? I'm going to hold Shift-Enter and run here. And this is really just loading the module, right? And it shows the commands available to me. And then it says enter a master password. This is going to be used to decrypt or encrypt my password. So now I don't have to store the passwords or store the API tokens or keys in a file, and it's in clear text. I can kind of encrypt it, right? I'm going to replace whatever's existing in there because it won't work.
and it looks like the file was replaced. Here is where it was added. So if you look here, it's in the, and by default, I'll store it in credentials, graph credentials folder. Okay. Let's go to it real quick. So I'm going to go to my terminal. I'm going to show you what it looks like. Again, I'm in that folder, so it's going to be here. It's a, the wiggle tilde slash dot credentials, and I have a graph credential right here. If I cat it, as you can see, the tenant ID is available. There's a salt byte, and also that's a new credential. You can't actually decrypt this with the normal secure, decryption method that you kind of, when you encrypt or decrypt with secure key, it's not really, it still can be decrypted. This one, you actually have to master password to actually decrypt it. Okay. All right. So now that I kind of showed you that, we're going to authenticate with the Graph API. We need the, again, we need the tenant ID, which I did fill out, the client ID, which I did fill out, and my client secret, which I did fill out. All of these are pulling from that, that credential file all the way up there, right? It'll be up here. Okay. I'm going to do, the resource is going to be API securitycenter.windows.com, and I'm going to do client credentials. Okay. I'm going to invoke authentication, right? And as you can see, I get an API key. Okay. Now this is the access token. I put it in a token response variable, right? If I don't do it that way, then it's not going to be accessible to me. If I just, just invoke the graph without putting it in any variable, then it's just like that, right? So you need it in a variable. And now that it's in the variable, I'm going to call on it and say token, what is it, response, yeah, R, response, right? And what is this? What type of object is this? Well, let's do get type, open parentheses, close parentheses, and it's going to be a PowerShell custom object, right? PowerShell custom objects can take advantage of a format table, which doesn't really look really good because it's that long token, a format list, right? Which is that default list that we saw. And now that we know, what format, we can go access token and grab that token. This is what we're going to need to authenticate with the API. Now that we got an access token, we've authenticated, we got an access token, great, right? And then now that will feed over here to this spot. So in order to, now that we got our access token, right, with the right scope, when you want to query the Graph API, and in this case, we're querying the Security Center, you need the application JSON, you need the accept, and you need authorization with the bearer, right? That's a key. You gotta have bearer, space, and then the token. Okay, that will be the header of the API call. Okay, this will be the URI of the API call. Okay, and then we're gonna make a request, right, to the Graph API. This is going to be the request. The method will be a get. We're going to then give it the URI, which was that. We're going to give it the auth header, which was this guy. The body, I actually don't need to provide a body. Yeah, I actually don't need to provide a body. I might have left it there, but it's empty, right? And then I'm going to work with the response value, okay? So let's go ahead and query it. Uh-oh. What went wrong? What went wrong? Well, let me explain. So,
in order to query the Graph API, you're going to need certain access. So here we are. Here's PowerShell. And then we needed to query this Microsoft Defender ATP node, right? And over here is the sort of the login.microsoft.com. So we'll say this is Azure AD, right? This is where you built that little application app ID, right? You guys get that? We just built this app ID, right? And now we need to authenticate with this guy, right? From PowerShell, okay? How do we do that? Well, I just made a Graph API call to the Microsoft Defender ATP API, and it didn't work. Let's go through the flow. So first, step one was to generate that API key or app ID. So that was step one, right? I'm going to put step one in rainbow colors. So step one is first we make the app ID. The next step was to take that app ID, put it into my PowerShell script, and authenticate with Azure AD with that, right? So that would be going over here and authenticating and passing that app ID. Sorry, I can't spell. I have bad handwriting. But that's the app ID. Now that we authenticate with Azure AD and we provided the app ID and my credentials, did I get an access token? Yes, let's look. I got an access token, right? Perfect. So yeah, I got an access token. So we're good there. What's going on then? What's going on? So that means that Graph API gave me, so that was number 2, right? This was number 2. That's not really pretty. Let's do red instead. Okay. And then Graph API, Azure AD responded back and gave me an access token, right? He gave me a access token. So I'll put access token. Okay. So we put access token. All right. Now I took this access token and I gave it to Microsoft Defender and say, hey, here's the access token. Okay. Where is it? 4. Here's my access token. And then Defender said, yeah, that's a good access token, but you don't have authorization to access my stuff. What are you talking about? Well, if I take this access token and I go over here and I go to something where you can kind of JSON web token decoder, you can actually, I mean, this is nothing like fancy or anything. I mean, it's actually embedded in the web token, right? You look right here. Here's the audience. Here's the ISS. But the scope, there's nothing in here. I don't have any access. So I gotta turn on access. That's the next part of the app. We gotta give ourselves authorization. All right. So when you authenticate with the graph, there's 2 things. First, you authenticate, and then you have authorization, and then you're given access, right? Just do 3 A's. A. Triple A. Authentication, authorization, you get access. Okay? Now, we didn't get the authorization, we got the access, so let's go get the authorization. That'll be going under API permission.
going under add permission for this app, going under APIs, and this may change in the future, but for now, I think it's called, what was the name? Windows Defender ATP. I typed it wrong. Windows Defender ATP. All right, let's look at this. Let's go to application permission, and look right here. It even tells you the URL just for you to verify. This is the URL right here, right? This URL, HTTP API Security Center. This is not the normal graph.microsoft.com. The URL is the same as over here, the resource. The resource is what we want to access, the resource, right? We want to access this resource. So now I'm going to request for that. I want alert, read all, add permission, and now that I did that, do I get access? No. You still have to grant yourself and grant consent for it. Now this check mark right here says you are good. This application is allowed to read all of Microsoft Defender ATP. This is what you want to do. If this is all that this app should do, you should never have an app have more access than it has. But you're going to get mad at us, you know, saying, man, why is there all these APIs, all these things to authenticate to, and all these little resource buckets? But now that you know the flow, now you know it's safe, right? You don't want to have an API, you know, app ID and an API and the access you give it. You don't want to give all access, right? There was many exploits that have been done and many things have been compromised when an adversary compromised some resource, and that resource had more access than what is granted. And then, so then he just leveraged that resource API credentials to access everything else, right? Make this louder movement. So you don't want to give it too much access, okay? So even if anybody was to compromise this client ID that I have that I'm going to delete, it would only have access to this. There's no read-write access. All right? So now that we know that, we granted access. Let's go back. Let's do it again. Uh-oh, doesn't work. Why doesn't it work? Because the access token that I generated is the old one. I've got to go back and get a new one, right? So let me run it through the flow again. I think that's okay. We're going to re-authenticate and get a new token, right? So we're going to get a new token, and let's see, resource. Yeah, that looks good. Okay. All right. I don't actually have the, now look at this again. You're forbidden, and I'm forbidden from accessing the machines read all. Look at that. Machines read all, machines read write. It's telling me what I don't have access to. I don't have access to read write or read all. So now I'm going to go back and grant access, because for this demo, I do need access to that. All right. So I'm going to go back here. ATP. We want to, I think it's right here, and go machines read all. Remember, let's just line it up. Machine read all, machine read write. Bam. I want the other one too. I want both. Grant. Right? Because I need to add machines to a certain group, this person, this particular client ID needs that access, right? All right. Now, still doesn't work. Let me go back over here. Let me re-authenticate with the graph. Let me generate a new token. All right, it did change. And there we go. So, did you understand that? Did you understand the flow, right? Let's go back to the whiteboard. So, I went over here.
I went from PowerShell. What can I erase? All right, let's do this. All right, let's redraw the flow. Right. Blah, blah, blah. All right. So we're gonna redraw the flow. What's happening to my mouse? All right. We're gonna go over here, and then we are going to get the access token, and then PowerShell goes back to the endpoint, makes that call. The endpoint says, do you have access? Check. Does he have authorization? Check. And then you get access. It's simple as that. Do you have authorization to access the endpoint or the entity that within the resource? Yes, because I gave it access, right? Okay, so now that I have access to do that part, let's now go into, let me see here. Go back here. We're gonna go next flow. So what did I do here, right? What did I do? Let me break it down. First, we want to invoke that graph API, right? When we invoke that graph API, we get some OData and we get a value. So we need that value. So I'll just put dot value over here, and there's the values, right? But look, it's in a sort of a not a pretty format. So we're gonna do a response, and now that value, right? All that stuff that I did, it gets stored in this variable, right? And now we are then going to do this, and we're going to look at it. We can do get type, and it's an array, so we know it's an array, so that means we can do a length. It's 6 entries. I have 6 machines, right? So here you go, right? And can I do format table? Yeah, I could do format table. All right. So now that's basically what I see on the top there. Kind of. You don't have a machine tag, right? But it is in the list. It's just, no, it's not big enough. So now we need to follow the next step of adding a device to a machine, tag a machine, and it goes to a device group. So I'm going to go to Microsoft Defender ATP. Actually, let me do it the proper way. First, we go to we go to security.microsoft.com, and then when we go to security.microsoft.com, this is going to be your overall dashboard. That's going to give you access to all the components. Everything is feeding here. All the alerts are ingesting over here, right? Everything is ingesting to the incidents. So all incidents are being aggregated. The secure score. You can do, if you're familiar with the advanced threat hunting, everything's going to aggregate here as well for you to query with KQL. And I'll cover KQL in another demo, but you can query KQL here and then go to more resources. And then when you go to more resources, you go to Microsoft Defender ATP Security Center, right? So we want to put the single pane of glass here, but then you can dive deep into those areas if that's kind of in your job role to manage that area. So we're going to go to Defender ATP, and then we're going to go into the My Device groups right here. And what are device groups? They're basically a grouping of devices, and you can group them in many ways. The purpose of device group is to do things like this. You want to do set, you want to set automatic remediation, or you want to assign administrators to certain devices. So if you want to scope
devices and say that these administrators can manage these devices and then these administrators can manage these devices, this is where you do it. So we add a device group. We're going to call it TeachJing group, right? And the tag I want to do is TeachJing. So if any of the machines with the tag TeachJing, they will be added to the TeachJing device group. I want to set that group to be fully remediated, right? And then you can do OS too, right? Or you can do domain, whatever you want, but this is how we would group it. I'm doing it by a tag. And then you want to scope it by users as well, right? And I didn't select user, so let me just add some user. I can manage it. Let's apply changes, right? So we applied the changes, and we have this pre-baked group that's waiting for a device to be added. You can kind of see in this column here, we have 4 in group 1, and we have 1 in group 2, right? I've done this demo before. Now, what do you think I need to do now? I need to label the machines. So let's go label it. First, let's go and run another query. Oh. And then we do this. And then we do response. All right, we do response. And I'm going to, as you can see, the response is more than what we saw in the table format. But this response, what I want the machine tag. I need to tag that machine, right? And I need to add it to a certain group. So I'm gonna do, I'll do this one, Win10 OOBE test, and I'm gonna put on this machine group. I need its ID, right? So let's find it. Response 0, that's that. If I want to specify a property within this, I do a period and I do ID. There we go. Let's put it into a variable. Machine equals that. Let's verify it. And it's in a variable. Boom. All right. Now that we have that, what group do I want to put it in? What group do I want to put it in? Machine ID equals machine, because I'm just referencing this right here, or I could just manually specify it. But what else do I need? I need a machine tag. A machine tag. What did I put? TeachJing. And action is add. All right. Does this make sense? Let's add it now. So now how do we add it? We're going to provide the JSON to add it. We need a JSON body, right? Whenever you do a get call, you're getting stuff. You don't have to provide a body or a message. But when you do a post, you do need to provide content so you can tell it what to do. In this case, the JSON body is going to be a value and an action. And then we're going to take that JSON body, convert it to JSON, and that'll be the new body. Does that make sense? So we're just building a hash table, and then we're converting it to JSON, and then boom, JSON body. Now we're going to call the Defender ATP REST API to this URI. If you pay attention, most of this is going to be the same thing. But what is different is right here. Is going to be over here. It's going to be the machine ID, and it wants to know the tags that you want to add that machine ID in. So there is a special URL to add tags. Okay? Now we're going to invoke that REST call. We're going to say REST method. We want to do a post. We want to get the URI from here. We want to provide the auth header from, where was auth header? Oh, the auth header, yeah, it wasn't here. It's somewhere up here. And the JSON body will be from here, right? Again, the auth header is somewhere up here. I didn't want to reuse it, so I'm using it over here. Because it's the same way, right? The auth header is going to be the same, but now we have a JSON body we can pass. So we're adding it to TeachJing. We're adding it to machine. We're going to label it. Let's do it. All right. So I got a response. That was pretty quick, right? And then, did it work? Let's see. We're going to query. We're going to go into the platform. And we'll refresh. Hopefully it will update. Let's see. Hasn't updated here yet. Let's go into the machine. Let's go into that ID. And where do I find tags? Oh, TeachJing's right here. So it is in that group. It might take a bit to update to the other one. Let's actually check if it's actually already available in the API. Let's go get machine to verify. Oh yeah, and it's right there. So we added the ID. We then added that computer to this one. You want to add another computer? We'll add Jing Lab. We'll add another one. Or let's just remove. We'll remove this other guy from group 1. Okay, so let's go back to the top. Where am I? Let's go back over here. We want to, let's see, yeah, that looks good. We want to modify this right here. So we need the machine ID. So let's take this machine ID. And then we want to do a remove. Run it. Did that do anything? No, those are just setting up the variables. That's setting up the machine to go into here. And it's setting up the action to go here. And then now that we did that, we're going to use this JSON body, which is going to go over here. Auth header, which was somewhere in the past, was going here. And then the URI that we built here, right, that string is going to go in here. And we have our post call. We remove it. Done. Let's verify it. And did we do Jing Lab? Maybe we did one that didn't even have a group. Let's do another one. I just want to make sure. So let's do this machine tag. Do this. We want to remove it. Oh, what did I do wrong, guys? What did I do wrong? I'm going to take you to the spot. What did I do wrong? I think it needs to be lowercase. Oh, actually, I already did it. No. Request body is incorrect. Request body is incorrect. I feel like we got everything. Oh, this right here. I totally messed up. Did anybody see that? I did the wrong thing. All right, let's do it again. I'm so dumb. All right, let's do this one. And then we put the machine tag. You probably were screaming at me saying, dude, I mean, we do this a lot, so I've done it a lot. So let's see. Machine tag, I want to remove it from group 1, right? I need to provide the tag. All right. Machine ID, machine tag, remove, run this, and it's gone. All right. Cool. So what do? We authenticated with the Graph API from scratch. We then did with client credentials, and then we verified the machine list, right? And then we added a machine to the device group. We removed the machine from the device group, and yeah. Yeah, don't know why it's not updating here. All right, guys, a quick correction. I just now thought about it.
the reason I was having trouble, and it wasn't anything with the portal. It's gonna be my bad. I didn't think about it, but right here, if a device, you see how it says rank, if a device is in multiple device groups, it will only take one device group. It can only be in one device group. Does that make sense? So let me see here. In here, I had TeachJing in one machine in TeachJing, but it was already in other groups. If I go here and I add it to this one, and I do a add, and I do TeachJing. Maybe it's maybe it's a capital A. All right, so it is case sensitive. Now I have this one only in one device group, right? I had too many trying to find things, and it ranks it. So I can either put this as a higher rank, or I just remove it off the other groups or whatever. But you get the picture. Let me refresh it. So yeah, see, now it's populated right. So either you move this up in the rank where it gets priority, and if I do that, how do you move up in the rank? Yeah, promote, increase rank by, I don't know, 4. Apply changes. So now it's a top rank. I'm assuming I should get the other one. Yeah, so now it gets 2 devices. All right, so quick fix there. Again, thank everyone.